Hi, my name is Stephanie. This is my mum, Suzy, otherwise known as Mum. I am a new mum, and I'm also another one on the way, so a nearly new mum of 2. And I stopped working as a nurse and decided that I really felt like I wasn't making a difference in the world anymore. But at the same time, I wanted to be following God with all of my heart. And feeling very imperfect and inadequate, I was like, well, what can I do? And I was actually talking with a friend, and she said, well, why don't you start blogging? And I sort of thought about it before, but I'd never actually taken the plunge. And she told me a little bit on what to do, and I figured, well, I'll just try it. And I prayed about it and just started sharing little bits from my day and the journey of me as a mum and a wife wanting to be a virtuous housewife. And I still feel very imperfect and very much young in the journey, but it's just a way that I can share with people like my journey with God, and hopefully encourage them in their walks as a wife and a mum, and inspire them as well in what I learn in my little journey. Even though it's not huge, it's hopefully sharing and being a blessing to other people as well.
Yes, well,
and my mum.
I'm actually very proud of my daughter Stephanie. She is very clever with words and poetry. She was always very imaginative growing up with her schoolwork, because she was homeschooled, and when she came to me and asked if I would manage the Facebook side of Virtuous Housewife, I thought, oh, well, what do I have to do?
We're both new in this whole venture.
Yeah. And she said, just do what you're doing on your side. So pretty much I wanted to really encourage Stephanie and be a help to her in her journey. So I said, yes, okay, I can do that. We pretty much all I put on there is devotional things, you know, Bible references and worship times that I have that inspire me. I like to share, and health tips, all different natural ways of doing things, clever and ingenuitive things that, you know, you don't normally think about. And
tips to sort of help you be a virtuous housewife, pretty much.
Yeah. And the journey that you take, and little shortcuts here and there, things that I think, wow, that's great. Well, that's what I post.
Yeah. And it inspires me too. It's encouraging to know that I'm not the only one on the venture. And like, you don't always get, I was just talking before earlier about how like you wait for people to read your blog, and you don't always get that many views or whatever, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is being a blessing for people, and who knows, like someone might just stumble upon it one day. And I've had random people just say, thank you for sharing that. Or I had one where I shared a really hard to deal with part of my life testimony that I really felt impressed by God to share, and I had a total stranger just write to me and just say, look, that really meant a lot, and really appreciated that. So that was encouraging for me, but at the same time not for my sake, more that I knew that God had used me. It wasn't me. It was that it was hard for me to write, but God used that example to help somebody else, and that really is an amazing feeling,
because we're not the only ones that are going through the trials of life as wives wanting to be more virtuous, and even young girls growing up. You know, it can inspire them. They're going through hard times, and when they read that someone else has gone through that same thing, it's a blessing to them. They think, wow, you know, well, if they can get through it, so can I.
Yeah, and it's the hidden stuff behind what you're doing. Like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but God does. So now I've sort of had to give it to God and say, look, God, if I feel inspired, if you really want me to write something, I will. I'm not going to do it for me anymore. And at the moment it's been a little bit of a spell because we've had a lot going on in our lives, but at the same time I know God is still working, and the posts that have been written are still there. And I know that God has a plan and a purpose bigger than I know. So it's just surrendering the whole thing to God and ultimately letting Him get the glory, because otherwise it's not worth it. Really.
Yeah, that's right. Even on the Facebook site, you know, some of the comments that come back, like sometimes I'm rushing through my day and I think, oh, I better do some of the Facebook things. So I'll go and I'll see a few things and oh, that looks good, that looks, you know, and I'll post. And then I get feedback saying, that's just what I needed to hear today, thank you. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, God knows, I don't.
Yeah, that's so true.
And it's just amazing how He works for the benefit of others through different avenues, you know. But yeah, it's just really lovely to feel that God has a use for us.
In a small way.
Yeah, because we've asked, hey Lord, you know, please use us today. And when you ask, you receive.
Yeah. When we are weak, we are strong, and God doesn't qualify. What is that saying? God doesn't
qualify the qualified.
He qualifies the called, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And that's like, you look at any story in the Bible, the people that He used weren't much. But that means that God is glorified through your imperfections. So the worse you are, the better God can use you.
Yeah, like if you are feeling inadequate and not qualified and don't have any direction, pray.
And God can be glorified so much more in someone who isn't much to themselves, because He is working through them, not them working through them. So that's encouraging for me when I think, well, what I write doesn't mean anything or whatever, but it's not me that's doing it. Sometimes when I write on the blog, I'll have an idea in my head, but I'm not the one that's writing it, because at the end it's something that I could never have imagined or worded right. But it's like God literally does work through you to help other people, and you just feel so small, I guess. But, you know, it's good. Just if you feel inadequate or imperfect, give it to God and let God use you. Like, that's the biggest thing, is surrender. And it all started with a surrender. And surrendering every little area of your life just changes your life. So
sharing testimonies, just what you're going through, the struggles that you might be having, can be such an uplifting an uplifting sermon, or you know, sharing testimony to others that are going through the same thing but nobody knows, you know. And I guess Stephanie with the Virtuous Housewife is just sharing her journey, because nobody has arrived. I don't know anyone on this earth that has arrived. We all have our struggles, we all have our down times, and sharing how God has brought us through those down times and out the other side is pretty much what Virtuous Housewife is about. Just sharing and
it's about
showing,
being honest too, like being vulnerable, because sometimes there are things that God is impressing you to write, and you don't want to share that because it makes you feel like people are going to look down on you. And in reality, I think like it's encouraging, because people can look at that and think, well, I'm not the only one, because not everyone will share the bad stuff that's going on in their lives and how God has used them in that, because they're afraid of what people would think. But just to forget about that and to just do it for God anyway, being vulnerable, so that other people can see that even though they are in a vulnerable situation or they are struggling, that God will use them and can get them out, like you were saying.